Chairs No Waiting, episode number 388, Listener Feedback. Two Chairs No Waiting is brought to you each week by the fine folks over at WeaversDepartmentStore.com. Drop by over at Weavers and check it out. They got the brand new 2017 Andy Griffith Show wall calendar. Got a Mayberry badge. We got some new shirts. We got the definitive guide to the Andy Griffith Show. Great books. Head over to WeaversDepartmentStore.com and check it out. Two Chairs No Waiting is also brought to you by donations from listeners just like you. And by donations from patrons over at Patreon.com. So thank you all. Thank you all for your support. I want to thank you for being here with me last week during the live show. Just so everybody knows this, I didn't get to do the live show live. It was live when I did it because, you know, I'm alive when I'm doing that, but it wasn't live at 8 o'clock on Monday night like normal. And folks showed up and I wasn't there and I scared some folks. So I'm sorry about that. Let me apologize. And moving on, tonight we're going to be doing some listener feedback because we have several pieces of information here. And the first one is a question that was written in by Melissa Lars. I believe you say her name. It's Lahrs. Is that Lars? I hope I'm saying your name right, Melissa. She had this question. She said, "Hello, I have a question." That's kind of what I just said that. I guess I shouldn't have read it. I had a question about why the number 11 plays such a big part in the Andy Griffith Show. Several of your trivia questions that I've done in the past, the trivia questions, have had the answer as 11. Barney's address ends in 11, and in the dogs episode, there are 11 dogs. I just found it interesting and didn't know if there was a reason for it. And that's from Melissa. So thank you, Melissa. Now, I started looking into this a little bit. She's right. You know, there's 11 dogs. When Briscoe goes to dip his hat in the hat trough, or horse trough, I mean, he's trying to refill the radiator. He says, always good for 11 hatfuls. So it is used a little bit often. So I ask Jim Clark, the presiding goober from the Andy Griffith Show Rerun Watchers Club, if he had ever been asked this before, because that had never occurred to me, that 11 seems to reoccur, at least some, in the Andy Griffith Show. And so I got this answer from Jim. He said, I've noticed that, and I've also heard a few others comment on it. Briscoe's 11 hatfuls is another, as I just had mentioned. Maybe that's where I got it from him. He says, my theory is that poetic writers like Everett Greenbaum like the sound of 11. You know, sort of like Edgar Allan Poe likes sounds like Raven and Nevermore. And like Everett Greenbaum and Jim Fritzell both liked middle initials, you know, like Ernest T. Bass, you know, those. Jim goes on to say, and 11 is more interesting and more than the more common 10 or 12. But he says, I don't really think there's anything more to it than the writers having that preference for subtle effect. My ears automatically take notice when they hear those kinds of uses and patterns of sounds and numbers. That's what Jim said. So there you go, Melissa. That is the answer coming from the Real Run Watchers Club headquarters. And, you know, I'd never heard any other response to that. That was the first I had ever seen that question and the first I'd ever thought about it. But that is kind of interesting. So guys, as you're watching the Andy Griffith Show, kind of start taking note and see if you can find other instances where 11 happens to come in to the equation, because that's kind of interesting. I'd never thought about it all these years. That's one I'd never caught. All right. So thank you, Melissa. I appreciate that. So now we're going to move on. We got some voicemail. We got lots of voicemail coming in, and I'm just going to play them, and then we will do our best to try to answer it. The first one is coming in from Braden. So Braden, let me make sure you're starting at the beginning, and Braden, take it away.
Hello, I'm calling. I just recently watched your Mayberry Squad Car Rendezvous. It was very good. Sorry to hear that Andrew Griffith has passed not too long ago, about a few years ago. And I was in Mount Airy, and I just missed Mayberry days, and I was hoping to see you there. Thank you for making all these awesome videos, and I guess that's all I have to say. This is Braden at Jedi Trainings, Lightsabers, and such.
Well, thank you, Braden.
Hey, Alan, this is Steve from Dallas.
We'll hear from Steve in just a second. But thank you, Braden. Thank you for calling in. I really appreciate you taking time to do that and leaving a voicemail. And he is at Jedi Training, Lightsabers, and such. He's got a YouTube channel, because I found it and watched some of his YouTube videos where he's a fan of Star Wars. But he didn't do a whole lot of Star Wars fighting, but I did see him playing with his, or training with his Jedi lightsaber weapons. So it was good. So I'm glad you're enjoying the show, Braden. Thank you so much. So next up is from Steve, as we just heard. So let's go ahead and let Steve say his piece.
Hey, Alan, this is Steve from Dallas, Texas, and love your show. We thought it was kind of interesting. My family and I watch Andy Griffith's show all the time, and we noticed that two different episodes that feature Robert Emhart. One is Man in a Hurry, Season 3, Episode 16, and The Foster Lady, Season 6, Episode 27, both start with Robert Emhart's characters broke down on the side of the road in Lincoln Continental. So anyway, that might be a good trivia question for people, but we thought that was kind of neat, and we wondered what the writers must have been thinking when they came up with that same exact start to both shows. So pretty cool stuff. Thanks for doing the show. We love it, and keep up the good work, man. Thanks.
Wow. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate that. And, that's another thing I had never noticed. I don't know if you guys had or not, but I had never noticed it, that on the beginning of both of those episodes, you either have, you have the Man in a Hurry. He's in first, of course, black and white. If you guys remember him, the Man in a Hurry, he's, his car is broken down and it's on the side of the road. And he said it's a Lincoln. And then later on, there's a black and white episode. Then later on, the Foster Furniture Lady episode, he is also broken down on the side of the road. He actually has a car phone at that time, but he's in a car then as well. And I'm pretty sure it is not the same car, but it looks to be both cars have doors. Well, I'm not sure. I think I can't tell. Maybe it was a 2-door the first time and a 4-door the second. But I remember the doors opened, the back door opened from front to back instead of like a normal back door. Or, most doors, open, you pull them out from the middle of the car out toward the front, or, toward the front of the car. It opens from the back to the front. And in that particular episode, I'm pretty sure those doors had handles that would have opened from the front to the back doors. Anyway, so I don't know. That's a good question. What were the writers thinking? I don't know that they were thinking anything, actually. Maybe they didn't even really consider the fact that both episodes had started off with him stranded in some way or some car troubles. But maybe those were his cars. I don't know. That's a great question. So Steve, I want to thank you for calling in about that. Cause, I had never thought about that either. So great questions this week. So thank you guys for doing that. That is really awesome. All right. So next up, we're going to hear from Mike, and I think it's about Snappy Lunch. So let's hear, from Mike, with his question. So, Mike, take it away.
Hey, Alan, this is Mike Dudley, right outside of Nashville, Tennessee, in a little town called Dixon, very similar to Mayberry. Actually sent you an email a couple episodes back that I heard you read on the air. I really appreciated that. I had taken my kids to Mount Airy last summer, and we're planning a trip back this year. But one of the questions that I could not find an answer to, and maybe you answered it in previous podcasts, what episode was the Snappy Lunch restaurant mentioned in? I know when we had a meal there, they said that they were the only establishment that was mentioned on Mayberry that was still a working business today. But for the life of me, I cannot find, other than just a reference to a diner, I don't remember them ever mentioning a Snappy Lunch by name. So hopefully somebody out there can help me out with that. Love the show. Thanks for all you do. Take care.
All right, Mike. So thank you for that call, and I can help you with that. The episode is Andy the Matchmaker. Okay, that was the 9th episode filmed, but it was aired as the 7th episode. So just to keep it straight. And they actually talked about going over the Snappy Lunch, and I can tell you when it was. It's the only episode. Now, I'm getting this information, by the way, from, if you go to mayberry.info, it's a wiki that I run, the Mayberry Historical Society. So if you have information like this, you can actually add it yourself. If you understand how to add things to Wikipedia and things like that, it's just like it. Anyway, the mention of the Snappy Lunch comes in at about 21 minutes and 18 seconds into the episode. So if you've got a DVD, if you have the DVD of the Andy Griffith Show, and I meant to get that ready, and of course I did not, but the clip comes in at 21 minutes and 18 seconds into the episode, where they actually talk about heading over to the Snappy Lunch. Now, there's also an article in Our State magazine where they talked about that, and talking about, it says here, by 1960, Charles became a full owner of the Snappy Lunch. Charles Dow was the owner. That same year, Andy Griffith name-checked the restaurant in an episode called Andy the Matchmaker, when Andy tells Deputy Barney Fife that they ought to go down to the Snappy Lunch and get a bite to eat. The restaurant became the only Mount Airy business ever mentioned during the 8-year run of the Andy Griffith Show. So there you go. That's in Our State magazine. If you go to ourstate.com/snappy-lunch, the little dash minus sign, ourstate.com/snappy-lunch, and that's where the article is. I'll try to put a link to that in our show notes so you guys can go and check out the article. And you can also head over to mayberry.info and get all kinds of information about the Andy Griffith Show. Lots of great stuff there. All right, so let's see. We got one more that I'm going to do today, whenever you're listening to this. And this one is from Randy about the Franklin Canyon and Mayberry, what it's about. So, Randy, let's hear from you.
Hi, Alan. This is Randy. I've met you a few times at Mayberry Days events. I am one of the proud co-goobers of the Gomer and Goober Pile Comic Book Literary Guild chapter in Greater Cincinnati. You occasionally ask about suggestions for possible subjects for your podcasts. A few years ago, I went out to L.A., was able to visit Franklin Canyon Reservoir, found your information about that invaluable when I went to help me find where I was going and to see what I wanted to see. And I was thinking about how about something similar to that involving Mayberry in Virginia, the community. I know the Mayberry Trading Post apparently still exists. I don't know if there's anything else there to see. I've never been, but I certainly plan to go the next time we go to Mayberry Days this fall. We're hoping to go out of the way a little bit. I know it's not too far away from Mount Airy, but just a possibility. Love the podcast, and as always, really appreciate all that you do for the Mayberry fans. Take care, Alan. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate that. Now, if you guys don't know what he's talking about, episode number, 13 of Two Chairs No Waiting. Wow, 13. It's called Myers Lake is Franklin Canyon Reservoir. And then again, I did another episode, and it's called, it's episode number 126, and it says Return to Myers Lake. And that also, both of those two episodes of Two Chairs No Waiting. So you can go and search. If you go to the twochairsnowaiting.com site and just search for Franklin Canyon, and you probably could search for Myers Lake as well, you can find that. And there's all kinds of information about Myers Lake. And then I did one more recently, episode number 335. It's called Myers Lake Revisited. So I've done 3 different episodes about Myers Lake. So if you haven't been to Franklin Canyon Reservoir, if you're in the LA area, I definitely want to encourage you. Now, the other thing he was talking about, though, was trying to do an episode, which I don't think that's a bad idea at all. An episode about the Mayberry Trading Post. That's right. So the Mayberry Trading Post. Now, if you've never been there, we went there a couple of years ago. Let's see, probably was that the first year we went to the Mayberry Trading Post the first year of the Mayberry Meetup. So there's definitely pictures involved in that. But you can go to the Mayberry Trading Post. Now, this is an old trading post. Well, it's an old store, an old country store. It used to be a gas station as well. It was a Gulf station. And it's located in Mayberry, Virginia. It's on the Blue Ridge Parkway. And it's definitely a fun place to go if you've never been there. When I was there, it was an older gentleman and his wife that actually ran it. But you can go inside and they have all kinds of old, neat stuff in there. Now, when I went originally, there was the older gentleman and his wife that were running the place. Well, they were actually the first day I ever went, he was in there cutting lye soap. He had made homemade soap, or somebody had made homemade soap. And he had Ziploc bags, little ones like sandwich bags. And he was taking a knife and he would cut a hunk of soap off. And he would look at it and then he would put it in the Ziploc bag and close it. And he had a Sharpie and he would write, 75 cents. And he'd put it in a big basket. Then he would cut another piece and he'd look at it and he'd put it in there and he would say 85 cents. So it was like, it just depended, I guess. He was not being exact about when he cut it. So they were all slightly different sizes. And he just wrote on there with his Sharpie the price. Anyway, it's a great place. The last time I was up there, I actually saw they had in that building, they had, when we talk about records, albums, record albums, most of us that are near my age would think about a 33 RPM record or a CD is an album. That's an album. Well, the reason it's called an album is because when they were 78 records, it was one song per side of 33 RPM size records. So you'd have, 10 songs in there. Well, you got to have 5 albums or 5 33 size records, 12-inch record in there. So that, with those all put in there, were called albums. And it looks like you get a DVD set now and it's got a little box around it and you slide the DVDs into it. Well, that's kind of what this looked like. And they had some there. They actually had record albums. There were 78 RPM records in there. Anyway, I digress from the Andy Griffith Show, but it is definitely an Andy Griffith filling location. So if you get a chance to go up and see the Mayberry Trading Post, definitely do that. Maybe we'll go back up there again next year as part of the meetup. That might be a good trip for us to go on. Well, folks, we have some more feedback. So if you didn't hear yours, don't get discouraged because we're going to be turning some of that into future episodes here at Two Chairs No Waiting. And definitely we will be doing that. So I just want to thank all of you for being here. Thank you so much for calling in and leaving voicemails and sending emails. It is always so great for me to be able to hear from you. I would love to hear from you. You can send me a note at floyd@imayberry.com or you can call me at 888-684-8415. I would love to hear from you, as would those who are listening along with you right now. We love to hear from you because it's fun to hear different ideas because, as you heard, several questions came up tonight that I had never thought of. So that makes it a lot more fun when we get to hear new ideas and new thoughts. So, folks, thanks again for being here and spending some time with me and Mayberry. And we will see you next time right here on Two Chairs No Waiting, your Mayberry podcast. Be sure to head over to the twochairsnowaiting.com podcast website and check out the links to things mentioned in the episode. See you next time, guys.
You know, too, I'm gonna take Miss Ellie to the picture show Saturday night. You and Miss Rosemary to go with us, and then after the show, we can go down to Snappy Lunch and get something to eat and some coffee. Want to?